Hello, everyone. So today we are going to do a Facebook Live. Sorry, just gotta pull it up real quick. Get my slides ready to go. Hopefully you guys are having a beautiful Monday and really getting started on this delicious week. I know that sometimes being on Monday can be kind of overwhelming because you have just so much to do. But sometimes if you just reframe how you feel about Mondays, it makes the week go by so much faster. So what I wanted to do today, the whole purpose of this whole 5-day training is to really help you guys, my beautiful, beautiful soul tribe, my beautiful, beautiful group, really understand a little bit more about the narcissist and narcissism, and a little bit about toxic relationships as a whole. So for the purpose of this training is more heavily focused on narcissist and narcissism. But if you are in another unhealthy relationship, with an addict or, just something that just feels unhealthy, there's going to be some explanations about that as well in here. So the whole purpose of this is to give you some information, obviously. It's to educate. Maybe you'll learn some things that you were not aware of before. And it's to validate your experience, validate what you may or have gone through. And my hope is that by the end of this 5-day training, you will feel strong enough to either navigate yourself away from these relationships, figure out a way to be in a relationship that is toxic, but not allow the toxicity to kind of rule you while you try to figure out what your next move is, or actually not experience another toxic relationship in a dating situation. So today's Think Like a Narcissist 5-day training, day 1, is all about defining narcissism and other toxic relationships. I just want to let you guys know before we really get into this is that we will be doing a homework assignment. And I have a special gift for anybody who participates. I'm actually doing a special gift for 2 people who participate, and they have to participate for all 5 days in the homework. And I'll explain the homework at the very end of day 1, and I'll explain it every day as we go on. Just so you know, unfortunately, because of the way that the Facebook share goes in this live, I can't see any of your posts. So if you have any questions or anything like that, I'll go back through later on and answer your questions there, but I can't really see them right now. However, I'd love for you to have conversations with each other, and hopefully, leave some comments and just like kind of get the momentum going for this conversation, which is why a lot of us are here in this group. All right, so day 1, defining narcissism and other toxic relationships. Woo! Okay, so a little bit about me. Some of you may not know who I am, besides just being the person who kind of started this group. So I have my master's in marriage and family therapy. I have started out my career as a therapist, and I've been a therapist for over 7 years. Do not let my young face fool you. I am in my 30s, and I've actually had a lot of experience. I am a child of a narcissist, and obviously I've seen the abuse that my mother suffered, and not to mention I also had this understanding of what I believed relationships were supposed to look like because of my father. So therefore, I was also a lover of multiple narcissists, many, many, many. I was a lover so much that I even ended up having a narcissistic female roommate, which I did not anticipate ever. I always have had really great female relationships, and somehow, because of my personal background, I ended up attracting a female narcissist into my life as well. I really understand so many different layers of narcissism, not only because of my therapeutic background and because of my experience, but because of the stories that I've heard from other clients, and I just have collected a lot of data over the last 7 years. I would say the last 3 years of my therapeutic career has been heavily focused in narcissism and toxicity in relationships. And obviously that's my main focus as a relationship and personal power expert. I'm an expert in healthy relationships and self-love. So what I really focus on is really helping people understand how to communicate better, how to really stand in their own personal power, how to have that reflected in the relationships that they want to attract, and how to really learn how to have a really good, healthy balance of masculine and feminine energy within a relationship. So all the things, there you go. Now you know a little bit more about who I am. All right, so here is a definition of toxic relationships. A toxic relationship is any relationship that causes internal or external conflict between either or both parties. So what this means is that if you feel emotionally overwhelmed, or if there's some sort of chaos that is always going on in your world, cheating, manipulating, physical abuse, all the things, it is considered a toxic relationship. Now, since for the what word am I looking for? For the sake, there we go. For the sake of this whole narcissism talk, it's important to know that not all toxic relationships are made of bad people or person. So both people in a toxic relationship don't have to be bad. They can actually be really good people. Some toxic relationships are made of good people who just make poor choices and have bad decisions. And this may cause harm to one or both members of the relationship. So, you might be a good person, but because of your past, maybe you're a little bit more reactive than you should be, or you're easily angered, and vice versa with your partner. So just because you're in a toxic relationship does not mean that you or your partner are horrible people. Signs that you're in a toxic relationship. Now, again, going back to the whole narcissism, since that's really our focus, is like, just because not all narcissists or narcissistic relationships, narcissist relationships are toxic. All of narcissist relationships are toxic, but not all toxic relationships are narcissistic. So it's really important to know that, because just because you're in a toxic, unhealthy relationship, you might be in a relationship with someone who's addicted. Doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. You might be in a relationship with someone who's a cheater or has anger issues. Doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. So it's really important to understand that there is a difference, that some of this stuff may apply. I believe that the definitions don't necessarily apply to everyone. However, the remedy and how to have healthy relationships applies to all and most. But we'll get to that towards the end of our 5-day training. So how does your partner make you feel? That's a really good question. Do you feel good feelings, positive vibes? Are you having, all the warm, loving feelings? Or do you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Do you feel like you're upset or unsure or distrusting? Do you feel safe in the presence of this person? Do you get like really uncomfortable vibes when you're around that person because you're not really sure whether or not they're going to be really angry or aggressive? Have you ever felt emotionally or psychologically distressed around this person? I mean, that's really important to understand. Like, do you ever feel, and it's one thing to just have your own personal anxiety and your own personal thought processes, but if someone's telling you that you are crazy, or if someone in manipulating your emotional state, or if someone is, making you, quote unquote, feel a certain way, like uneasy or anything like that, because they're violating your boundaries, that's important to note. Is this person manipulative or conniving? Are they always trying to, pull the wool over your eyes or get you to do things that you're not really wanting to do? Do you feel like this person adds unnecessary chaos to your life? Is there always drama around this person? This person is always in and out of jobs. This person is always demanding things from you, possibly cheating on you. Like, you're just a lot of chaos and drama around this person. Have you ever felt that this person may push moral and ethical boundaries? So that's really important as well. Do you feel like, maybe not with you, but just in general, are they pushing, kind of like walking a fine line on what may be moral or ethical? And do you feel emotionally drained after dealing with this person? Is it just kind of overwhelming trying to navigate your feelings and their feelings all the time? And these are just a few signs that you may be in a toxic relationship. Now, if you have studied narcissism, obviously a lot of these things apply, but it's going to be a little bit more intense. So we will continue with that as well. So narcissism. Okay. So the basic, run-of-the-mill definition is excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. So synonyms: vanity, self-love, self-admiration, blah, 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 egotism. Now, the problem with this particular definition is that people just assume that narcissists are just people who like to look at themselves in the mirror. And yes, by Greek mythology, what was his name? Narcissus. That's what he did. He was so caught up in looking at himself in the water that he ended up drowning or something like that, I think. And that is so far from the truth when it comes to narcissism and narcissist. So if you think about the basic definition, we would say that that's on the very, very low end of the spectrum. So say narcissism is on a spectrum. The basic definition of vanity or egoism or egotism, we would put that at like a 1 out of 10. Okay, 10 being like the most severe, 1 being the least severe. Okay, so now we're going to get into the psychology definition. So this is more close to how the DSM or basically the measurement that psychologists use to diagnose personality disorders. This is what they would kind of use on a basic level. Selfishness involving a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, super important, a need for admiration as characterizing as a personality type. And then if we go into psychoanalysis, this gets even deeper, right? So it's pretty much, so psychology would be the behavior. Psychoanalysis would be like the mind. Okay, so the mind is self-centeredness rising from failure to distinguish the self from external objects, either in a very young babies or as featured as a mental illness. So what this means is that everything outside of them is an extension of them. So therefore, that's why they have to manipulate and control all the things in their external environment, because you don't have your own personality. You don't have your own sense of self. You belong to parts of them. So they see you as a reflection of them. And so that's why whenever you maybe disobey or do something that they don't like, it's really difficult for their ego, for their mind to comprehend, because they need to have control at all times, which is why they're always trying to get control or gain control or power of any particular situation. All right, hopefully that makes sense. I'm sure you guys will leave some questions for me or some comments. I hope you do. Again, I can't see them right now, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to see them in a little bit, maybe later on today or tomorrow. So I'll respond to all that stuff then. All right, so how to distinguish a narcissist. Okay, so this is different from just any toxic relationship, okay? Because there are some really, really key signs to really understanding if you're dealing with a narcissist or just in a toxic relationship. So one is this deliberate attempt to hurt or manipulate. And by deliberate, it means that like they know exactly what to say. They know exactly what's good. In other words, you've shared all of your secrets with this person, and therefore they use those things in order to hurt you or manipulate you to stay or to make you feel small. And it's deliberate. It's intentional, because that's how they gain power and control. Whereas just a regular toxic relationship, they may use things against you because they're hurting, so they want to hurt you, but it's not that they want to actually gain power and control over you. So there's the difference. Gaslighting. Okay, so this one's another big one. And gaslighting is manipulating you into believing that you're crazy. It is pretending as though things that you may have actually physically witnessed or heard in regards to their behavior, and maybe that you called them out on, they say never happened, that you are hearing things that you have no proof or no evidence because it doesn't exist, and then they basically call you crazy. Which gaslighting is the worst, because it's like this psychological manipulation. You really believe that, like, well, maybe I didn't see what I saw. They talk you out of catching them cheating red-handed. Like, no, that wasn't me. I was never there. This is where I was, and you're just being crazy. You're psychotic. And after being told you're psychotic enough times, you probably start to believe it, right? You start to believe that maybe I am losing my mind. Another thing is blame shifting. So say you accuse them of cheating. They'll be like, no, you're cheating. This is X, Y, and Z. Here's all this evidence. You must be cheating. You're the one who doesn't love me, blah, blah, blah. So they typically turn it around. Or something else that these people will do, and it's kind of between blame shifting and gaslighting, is that they will accuse you of cheating or being unfaithful or doing something that they are doing. So if they're the ones who are cheating or being unloyal or hurtful in whatever way, they will accuse you of doing that same thing to them before you even have an opportunity to catch them doing the very thing that they're accusing you of. Love bombing. Love bombing happens in the beginning of a relationship. With narcissists, it's basically how they catch you. They morph into the person that you believe that you've always wanted, the person of your dreams, the man of your dreams. And it's a lot of intense, delicious feelings really, really quickly. And so it's so intense and so passionate and so perfect in the beginning that that's what you believe that you really want. And now you're basically addicted to it, almost like a drug. It's very similar to a drug, because it's something that you've desired so much and you fantasize for so long, and then they meet all of your fantasies, they meet all of your dreams, and then all of a sudden all of that stops. You will always be looking and waiting for the love bomb to come back, because you're like, they were perfect in the beginning. How, like, that person's still in there somewhere, they have to be. Another narcissistic trait is monopolizing the conversation. So all they do is talk about themselves. They rarely ask you about yourself. And if they do, they keep it surface. They really don't want to know much about like your dreams and your hopes and like the deeper things. They definitely have no ability to take empathy for anything that you might be going through. And so they just completely bulldoze the conversation. Whether it's with family, friends, just between the two of you, it's always about them. And a lot of times they do a lot of things called like verbal dumping. So they'll dump a lot of their problems onto you. And then you have no space or emotional capacity to really share your experience, which can be really overwhelming because it's a one-sided kind of relationship. You're always basically absorbing their personal conflict, and you have no room to actually share your experiences. They violate your boundaries. So whether you're in a relationship or out of the relationship, narcissists like to have power and control. And so they will do anything and everything that they can to violate any boundaries that you try to set for yourself. And so this looks in multiple ways. So whether it's physical boundaries or time boundaries or financial boundaries. I know a lot of people experience the financial boundaries that have been violated, especially after a relationship. And so, that's another tell sign that you're with the narcissist, because they do that deliberately. They project and make you protect. Okay, they project and make you protect a false image. So what this means is that I'll give you a perfect example. So my father, who's a narcissist, he got his law degree, and really great, right? Really proud of him, got a law degree. But he makes everybody call him doctor. So in what world does a person who has a JD, a Juris Doctorate, ever get called doctor? Nowhere. People who have a PhD and who are professors, doctor. People who have an MD and who are physicians, doctor, but not a lawyer, right? And so our entire family had to protect this false image. And one way that I protected my own sense of self was from this false image was by making up some PhD that he had gotten. Right? I was like, oh, he has a PhD in finance. To this day, I still question whether or not he actually does, because I've told that lie for so long, because it was so embarrassing having my dad, who only has a law degree, make everybody, including my friends and boyfriends, call him Dr. Green. But I don't know. So I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a PhD in finance. He might have a couple certificates or maybe a master's, but I don't think he has a PhD. So anyway, as his daughter, I clearly protected this false image. Sense of entitlement. That's pretty self-explanatory. They believe they're entitled to anything and everything. They're entitled to your body. They're entitled to your finances. They're entitled to your love and your appreciation and your validation. They're entitled to do, say, or be whoever they want to be. And you don't have the same entitlement opportunity. Grandiose sense of self or self-importance. Again, they have to paint this picture of themselves as being better than most or all people. Narcissists tend to get in a lot of disagreements because they don't have a really good sense of relationship. And so this grandiose sense of self-importance comes from the fact that they burn a lot of bridges, and so they have to basically make it seem like it was the other person's fault. They're stupid. They don't know what they're talking about, X, Y, and Z. And then the last, obviously, the emotional vampire, meaning that they just suck the living shit out of you. You feel overwhelmed. You feel drained. Any positive energy that you may have had before being around a narcissist for a long period of time is probably gone. And yeah, they just sucked out all the fun and deliciousness of life because they're emotional vampires. All right, next one, the toxic relationship trend. So I thought this was really important to kind of share with you. And this, again, this pie chart is not really accurate or anything like that. It's more of an illustration based off of some, statistics that I've read and know about given my history as a therapist. And so if you think that 50% of the population, we're just talking about married people, right? 50% of the population typically gets a divorce. So if they're getting a divorce, it's probably 50% of relationships that are toxic, right? They are unhealthy. They're not communicative. They aren't doing a very good job, right? And so we'll just say that out of 100 people, 50.5% get a divorce. And then we have the addicts. So it's about, I think the statistic is that in America, and these are statistics for America, in America about, it's like 380 million people suffer from addiction. And I think that kind of turned out to be about, 39% of people have addiction and they're addicts. And then from the addiction part, there's the narcissism. So narcissism makes up about 9% of the population, based off of a study in, where was it? I think it was like 1 out of 9 or something like that, in New York, of all people, of all places. So again, this pie chart is not really supposed to make statistical sense. It's just more of an illustration, because I think a lot of times we get in this mindset that all relationships are going to be unhealthy, and they're all going to be narcissists, and they're all going to be addicts, and blah, 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 or whatever. But truthfully, narcissism only makes up about 9% of the population. And then this little green sliver right here, those are psychopaths. That's like 1% of the population. And so remember, you talked about the spectrum, right? So just basic narcissism or vanity or egotism is like a 1 on the spectrum. And then psychopath, which is like the most intense narcissist you could ever find, which is just really scary, that makes up about 1% of the population. So if you look at all of the relationships that end in divorce or whatever, probably about 50% are just regular communication problems, 30-40% are addicts, 9 to 10% are narcissists, and like 1% are psychopaths. So it's just really important to understand that if you're afraid that you're going to end up in another narcissistic relationship, this doesn't necessarily mean that that's true. There are a lot less narcissists than there are addicts, and then there are just unhealthy relationships. And again, this is skewed to toxic relationships themselves. So just recognize that this is still 50% of the 50% of people who are married. We're not even including people who are unmarried and just in long-term relationships, and we're not including the people who are married and happy, right? These are just all the unhealthy relationships. Okay. So a little bit more about addicts. So any person who uses a substance that interferes with their daily functioning, that's how we would kind of define that group of population of people who probably, well, they're unhealthy, right? And some of those relationships last for a long period of time, but a lot of those relationships end up failing because the addicts are they're more addicted to their substance than they are to their partnership. And then we have psychopaths, so I wanted to kind of describe that for you. So extreme narcissism with organized criminal intent and a complete lack of remorse or guilt. So psychopath is like the Ted Bundys, super charming, super delightful, but murdering people, killing people, you know. So that's a definition of a psychopath, extreme narcissism. And the other 50% of the population that ends in divorce or separation due to mental health issues. I like how it says mental healthy issues. Oops. Communication issues or infidelity issues, etc. So just so you have an idea of the kind of different types of toxic relationships out there. And I have a lot of Britneyism, so one you want to know is that you don't know until you know. And the reason why I wanted to put this in here is because I know a lot of us beat ourselves up because we're like, why or how did I not see that this was in my life? I can't believe I let myself succumb to this or be abused. Because most women who end up in toxic relationships are really strong and beautiful, powerful women. And then you just feel completely beaten down after these relationships. So you didn't know. You don't know until you know. And then once you know, you can make informed decisions. So that's just important for you to understand. And I just want to validate that you're going to figure it out. Okay. All right. So next week, tomorrow, Tuesday at 7 p.m., we will be doing day 2, and that's how the relationship works. And this is just understanding your role and the role of the narcissist in the narcissistic relationship. Really fascinating stuff. For your homework, what I want you to do, if you want to win the delicious prize that I'm giving away, it's really, really delicious. I'm really excited about it. I'm giving it away to 2 winners. I know it says a winner, but I think I'm going to do it for 2. So, be the lucky 2 people. I want you to write down an aha moment from today's lesson, something that you weren't sure of. If you have to watch or rewatch this video, please do that. Whenever you write down your aha moment in the group, please make sure to write down the day of the training, so day 1, and then the hashtag, which is think like a narc. Very cute. That way I can kind of just pull it up by the hashtag and see if you have been consistent with all 5 days, and then I can pick a winner from the 5 days. Make sure that you watch all 5 days. That's super important. And you'll have a homework at the end, and you'll have to post an aha moment from each training. So it's important to watch it. See what resonates with you, and really just kind of like anything that kind of stuck out. That's going to be really important for I think for me, and then for other people too, reading it and just kind of having that conversation. You do not have to have watched it live. It's okay if you watched it later on or maybe a day later. Just make sure that you have 5 different hashtags or 5 different posts with the hashtag that says think like I'm narc. But it has to be relevant to each training. So make sure you say what day the training is, and then have the hashtag with your aha moment. Yeah, and that's it. So hopefully you guys had a great experience understanding and seeing all this stuff. Hello, everyone. Oh, I can see you now. That's exciting. As you see my really weird, screen. I hope that you all have a beautiful rest of your week. I will check on this post later. I'll take a look at all your comments and everything later. And don't forget to do your hashtag so you can win a delicious prize. All right, I love you guys so much. I hope this was informative, and I will see you tomorrow at 7. Bye.